Okay, so we just got to Coconut Grove, my office at Compass, and as you can tell, it's not a beautiful day today. A few months ago, we did a show on Sushi Maki on Must See Miami, and click on the link below to watch it. But while we were doing that show, there was so much material that we couldn't share, so we want to share. And one of the things about it was, being an entrepreneur today, we see so much about it online, but we usually don't know the behind the scenes. And as an agent in real estate, it really resonates with me. So Abe, the owner of Sushi Maki, shared with us a lot of principles on what makes a successful entrepreneur, and I hope you enjoy the show.
So talk to me about your what it's like being around a restaurant as a kid.
Yeah, so my mom and dad are immigrants from Hong Kong to the US. Dad came with $80 in his pocket in 1959. Mom came in 69. They were married in New York. And for their honeymoon, they honeymooned here in Miami Beach. And a few years later, they moved to Miami. And that's kind of where they started and developed some roots. And as I mentioned, I was born in Miami in '73. My mom and dad are really positive people, you know, kind of that mindset that anything is positive. They're adventurous. Obviously, you know, leaving their country to a different country takes a lot of courage. So, you know, what I remember is just really the hard work, the perseverance, the habits about, you know, you got to love your work. I grew up also around restaurants quite a bit. My mom and dad started Canton Chinese restaurant. So for you old Miami or longtime Miami visitors are probably familiar with Canton Chinese restaurant. So that's my upbringing in a nutshell.
Some people, like working in a restaurant as a kid, want to get away.
Yeah.
And that turned into your...
No, for sure. I was one of those that wanted the furthest thing, you know, to be away from the restaurant business. I saw the long hours, the commitment, the grind. It's a business that's not glamorous. And as time went on, there was lots of the restaurant business that I loved. I loved the ability to work as part of a team. I loved the creative aspect of it. I loved the food aspect of it. And I found whether I was in school or my first job, I loved kind of reading about what other restaurateurs were doing. And, you know, that's kind of what led me to make the jump and shift from a more conventional kind of consulting career to one that was more of an entrepreneurial venture in the restaurant business. And it was a blast. Learned a lot, but we were doing really good, strong business at lunch. But people really weren't eating burritos for dinner. So our dinner business was a little softer. And in the restaurant, you know, kind of a vernacular, it's called, you need 2 day parts. You need a lunch and a dinner. And we only had one. Jason, my former partner, went a different direction in his career. And I stayed in the restaurant business. And, you know, we ran Rapido for a few years longer. And then we converted from Rapido to Sushi Maki, which started in the year 2000. When I was at a business school seminar last week, and they mentioned that you know, the element of luck, and what he said is that, you know, when you work hard and you're gritty and you persevere, you give luck a chance, right? When you give up too soon, then you don't give luck a chance to happen. So that's one thing where, you know, Sushi Maki certainly has not been a straight line to where it's at. There's been ups and downs, but you got to stay in the game and keep persevering, and then, you know, lucky breaks happen. So the idea in my head was maybe to do multiple concepts, you know, kind of a more Vietnamese concept, a more Japanese concept. So, but after a while, we realized that there was a lot of growth for sushi, so that's when we decided to do a second Sushi Maki. And the intent was never to do a big chain. It was to create one great neighborhood sushi restaurant. So I think, you know, in the back of my mind, we always wanted to do something big and with impact. But that's when you can get into trouble, when you think about it in scale before you get really a proof of customers beloving your brand at the one unit level. The other part of how Sushi Maki grew was really out of necessity. In 2008, we had just built out a commissary, and our restaurant sales, went down because of the tremendous turbulence in the economy. And we looked around entrepreneurially, what was growing back then in 08, 09? It was hospitals, airports, and the universities were the only places that you saw cranes. So that's really when we started pitching, how can we get Sushi Maki into those venues? And from there, you have to partner with these master concessionaires. We have wonderful partnerships with Compass and Aramark, and working with hotels as well. So I think that's really kind of the power of Sushi Maki, is that we're able to serve our sushi in a multitude of venues.
What has been the biggest failure of your career?
So I would say kind of that episode of transitioning from Rapido to Sushi Maki was, you learn so much in failure, but you also learn that you have a responsibility to people, to your investors and to your employees, to have a great business model. And the business model wasn't great. So that's when we were able to pivot and look very entrepreneurially as to what was needed in South Miami and in Coral Gables. And it was hard to believe that 20 years ago there was not a lot of sushi in South Miami or Coral Gables. And that's when we decided to kind of reconcept Rapido to a great neighborhood sushi bar. It wasn't a lot of fancy kind of market study. It was just kind of common sense, which is what business is at the end of the day. And the hard part about any business is kind of inspiring and leading people. My job as the leader is to articulate the vision, but to put together a great team, give them some guidelines, and let them really like solve the challenges, because the team members are the ones that are touching the guests at the front line. There's only so much that I can do from where I sit, and my dad always kind of taught me that the most important person in the restaurant business is your frontline person or your dishwasher. If I don't show up to work one day, it's people don't notice the difference. But if somebody that's a critical team member, a delivery person or a cashier doesn't show up, you really see kind of some system breakdown there.
That makes a lot of sense, because I was just waiting here, setting my equipment.
Yeah.
And one guy's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And one of the frontline people.
Yeah.
Everybody's really friendly, which says a lot.
So that comes down to trying to hire the right people that have that disposition. Are they smiling? And those are the cues we look for when we're hiring. The things about teaching people the technical skills, we can train for that. But that kind of ability to smile and be warm and welcoming, I think you're born with that. Somebody once taught me that if somebody can do something, 80% as well as you got to delegate it. And I've heard more recently that it's actually 50%. And once you delegate to somebody, they might not do it the same way as you. And you have to be okay with that. You need to surrender to the process. Otherwise, a leader, you can put a cap on how big the organization can grow and how much you can grow if you have to control everything. So it's tough.
It's super tough.
Yeah, it's something I struggle with. It's how do you surrender? How do you let go? It's only then, and you need to find the right people, can you really scale to the next level. That type of maturity takes a while to learn. You learn from mistakes, and it's really something where it's a combination of you read about it in books, you see it modeled in great bosses, and mentors. They pour into you and they share with you best practices, and you also end up surrounding yourself with people who complement your non-strengths. So I think all those things mixed together really kind of teaches you what it takes from the people side of the business. And it's that simple, but yet it's that hard. I think our family also has been very open to to getting outside resources to help us. We have an advisory board. We went together to a great families and business program in Boston about 10 years ago. So we learned some tools on how to get together as a family and talk business, but also when you get together as a family and do family, you have some kind of boundaries, because when everything is commingled, that's when it can get really messy. 20 years later, in many ways, mission accomplished. Sushi is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And I think how Sushi Maki has continued to evolve is that we've always been innovative in how we serve sushi, where we serve it, at universities, at the airport, at football games. We were very early on third-party delivery, Sushi Maki, with Uber Eats and Grubhub. So we've always wanted to make sushi accessible and affordable.
So my two takeaways after seeing that episode: one, it's never as easy as Instagram makes it seem to be a successful entrepreneur. And two, I'm so hungry right now. So if you want to see the other episode of Sushi Maki or other episodes of All In Miami, please go to allinmiami.tv. And please remember to share, like, and comment on this episode.